So where do you draw the line on AI being able to take what has already been created and spit a new thing out? What world do you live in which you think everyone can just do anything if they try or if they really want to? Imagine creating something that people love so much that the entire internet goes absolutely wild, unprompted, and unincentivized to see the world in a style that this guy created. There are people who would rather live in the dream of their idea of something they could do than actually try to do the thing and find out that they failed. Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. I am Kevin Lieber. If you have not been under a rock lately, you will have seen this explosion of anime AI art all over the place, mostly Studio Ghibli stuff, but I've seen not even just anime, I've seen Muppets, I've seen Norman Rockwell paintings, seen all kinds of stuff with this new Chat GPT image generator update. It absolutely just flooded Twitter on yesterday. I'm sure it'll be a fad for the most part. Everybody's really excited about it for a day. They turn every image, whether it's offensive or innocuous, into some sort of anime version. And probably like 3 days later, everyone will be sick of it. That seems to be like the lifespan of most meme things. And I would categorize this trend as a meme for the most part. I think it gets like 1 day of organic explosion, 2 days of really good jokes and variations. And then by the third day, once like really big accounts or brand accounts get in on the fun, that's usually the death knell for it. So I think we're still in the throes right now of people being interested in it. But there are also a lot of people upset about it, frustrated by it, annoyed by it. They hate it. So that's what makes it an interesting topic to me is, where do I land? What do I think about using these AI image generators? The first thing I wanted to say is just how good they have gotten with this update. It did seem to be there a bit of a lull for a little bit with the quality of the AI images. I had been tooling around a little bit with Grok for my book, for Sleep Warrior. I just wanted to visualize and generate some ideas and some pictures of my characters in Sleep Warrior. And I got tired of it really quickly. I just didn't seem to be able to come up with, first of all, it wouldn't listen very well to what I was saying. One of the characters is overweight, and I kept telling Grok, no, he's fatter. Make him fatter than this. And it just wouldn't listen. He's also Asian. And I kept saying no, make him Chinese. This is a Chinese character. And it wouldn't do that. I'm like, all right, so this blows. So I got tired of that really quickly. But this new update seems like quite a leap forward in the technology, which is why people are utilizing it. It's why it's all over the place, is because seemingly, I haven't used it. I don't have a subscription to Chat GPT, which I think that you need in order to use it, if I'm not mistaken. But it seems to me like you could just pop in any photograph, any picture into the thing, and you'll tell it, ask it what style to generate, and it will just do it. And the images are incredible. I mean, they're really, really amazing to look at. So, of course, there's, since the beginning, really, of LLMs and image generators coming into the forefront, there's been a tremendous amount of backlash to it, which I understand. So that's why this is an interesting topic to me, because I see both sides of the excitement for it and also like the loathing of it pretty well. Right off the gate, I should disclose that I have been used to train AI. So there was a report that came out sometime last year that I don't know how this leaked, but basically there was a leak of a bunch of YouTube channels that had been used to train. I don't even remember which one it was. I think it was an Apple AI, and Vsauce 2 was on there. I think there were like 77 Vsauce 2 videos or something that were used for that, which I didn't feel great about. And that was pretty strange to me. It was weird to be in the position of like, oh, okay, so like my face and my voice and my visual style, my way of, explaining concepts was used to train AI, and I didn't know about it. I had no idea. Nobody asked. I didn't get an email from Apple saying, "Hey, we'd like to use your videos to train our AI system." That's not a thing, and obviously that's at the crux of what a lot of the complaint about this is that, I mean, it is it. Well, is it? Sort of this is the question to explore. Is like, is it stealing to use, artists' creations without their permission to train an AI system? Is that stealing, or is it inspiration? I don't know if that, I think, maybe you listening to this, you might have or believe that you have like a stronger answer to that question than I do. But I don't have a strong question, or I don't have a strong answer to that question, because it's confusing if you think about the differences between like stealing an IP and using something as inspiration. Because think about it from the perspective of Vsauce. There have been countless people, countless YouTubers over the years who have told me to my face that Vsauce was a tremendous inspiration for them to get into YouTube, which is really, really cool and really flattering. And also, mostly directed at Michael, not at me. But nevertheless, what Michael did, and to a lesser extent, what Jake and I did with Vsauce 2 and Vsauce 3, respectively, did inspire a whole lot of YouTubers to make YouTube videos. And, they take what they learned from watching our videos and they make it their own. Obviously, that's not stealing. Obviously, we would call that inspiration. I was also thinking about, because I started playing this new game, the first Berserker Kazan. I can never get the title right, but it's this Kazan game that is a Souls-like. Okay, so what is a Souls-like? Well, it's this entire genre of video games now that rip off Dark Souls, like Demon Souls, and then the Dark Souls games after them developed a really unique way of playing action RPGs. Some of the tropes are that you have these bonfires that you can rest at, where you can heal and you can upgrade your character. But when you do that, the penalty is that all of the enemies in the area respawn. Well, so many games now have ripped that off. And, no one talks about them stealing that idea. They just consider it inspiration. It's not like FromSoft is going around suing the creators of Neo or Lies of P or this Kazan game. That's not a thing. They say, okay, you made a game that's a lot like the game that and the genre that we really invented, but that's sort of how art works. All art is derivative of something that came before it. So where do you draw the line on AI being able to take what has already been created, mash it all up, and spit a new thing out? I don't know. I'm not sure. I think plenty of people would come down on the side of no, it's theft. And I don't know that I have a really strong argument against that viewpoint. I think it's a valid viewpoint. And like I said, I've literally been a victim, if you want to call it, if you want to use that word, of training AI systems, without my permission. But when it comes to some of the backlash that I've seen, I have I have more questions about some of the responses that I've seen. One of the things that has been going around a lot is this idea that, the AI image generators make art accessible to anyone, that anybody can just type in some words because, everybody who's literate can do so. And then it, spits out some sort of visual. And because of that, art is now art. We're going to get to that question. What is art? But art, we'll just say loosely, is now available to anyone who can string together a series of words. And some of the backlash to that has been, well, art is accessible to anyone who, has a writing utensil. Or I even saw somebody say, like, well, people have been making art, since they could spit clay through their fingers onto cave walls. It's like, okay, that's like, I just find that argument a little ridiculous for a few reasons. One, it assumes that anyone can just become an artist. Just like you think these people think that anyone can just become an excellent illustrator because they have access to colored pencils and paper. I mean, that is completely preposterous. First of all, do you not recognize the concept of talent? Because I do. People obviously have inborn talents for any number of different things, whether it's in athletics or it's in mathematics or it's in illustrating. A talent is a thing. I mean, there's a reason why even in the NBA, some of the basketball players are better than others. I mean, they're all really, really good at basketball. They all try very hard to be the best at basketball, but some of them are just better. LeBron James is just better than like the 15th man at the end of the bench on the Lakers. How do you explain that other than recognizing that talent exists? The other thing is that it takes a really long time and years of dedication to become great at anything, let alone drawing or painting or illustrating or anything like that. And not only does it take a really long time and a lot of dedication, but I think it obviously takes passion for that, which not everyone has. It's really arduous to get good at any skill because you're going to be really bad at it for a long time. It takes a lot. I mean, think of how long, even like exercising, like weightlifting. Okay. Go from never having lifted any weights to the gym right now and see how much you can bench. It's probably not that much. And it's certainly not much compared to if you'd been doing it for 5 years consistently. You're going to be able to put a lot more weight on that bar. You'll be able to push it a lot, many more times than you did day one. And the other thing about, art or any skill is that it takes a certain temperament as well. Someone who does get really easily frustrated very quickly about not being good at a thing and gives up, well, they're probably not able to stick it through to get to a point where they get any good at it. How would they? I mean, how many times? Oh my gosh. I mean, you probably have an experience with this in your life, or somebody who, oh, I'm going to play guitar. Oh, I really want to play guitar. And they pick up a guitar and they tool around with it for like a couple of months, and they don't get to the point where they can play the song that they want to. And they're just frustrated by the experience, and they put the thing away and it collects dust. They never pick it up again. Well, not everybody has that experience. Some people become obsessive about playing the guitar and, they become fantastic. And even in the example of the guitar, you can be obsessive about it and still not get to a point where you're all that good at it. I mean, in my own life, there was a period where I was playing guitar for a few hours every single day. And there are people who, after 6 months of picking up a guitar, were better than me at playing guitar than I was after 2 years. So there's just a huge spectrum of variation with all of this stuff, whether it has to do with your life circumstances or, the amount of time that you can dedicate to a more or less extraneous hobby, to your inborn talent, whether that exists or not. I mean, man, I had quite a reality check when I was in middle school and I first realized how much I sucked at sports. I loved sports when I was a kid. I played baseball, I played basketball, I played football. Basketball was really the one that I liked playing the most. But as I got older and, everyone around me got stronger and everyone started going through puberty and all of that, it dawned on me pretty quickly like, oh, even though like I love this thing, I practice it all the time, I try as hard as anyone else on the court, I'm not any good at this. I actually am pretty bad at this. No matter how much I want to be great, I'm not. I wonder how many people have that experience if they haven't, at least at a young age. I think sports gives you a really, it really allows you to learn a hard lesson, I guess, one way or the other. It can be inspiring, I guess, if you do find that you're the best person on the court, but it's pretty demoralizing when you recognize that you're not. And, you get cut by the JV basketball team out of 25 kids. You're one of the people who don't even get to sit on the bench. Like, I'm not even good enough to sit on the bench. Really? Wow. That sucks. I guess my ambitions of playing sports are over, and maybe there's something else I could do that I could excel at. But it's certainly not playing basketball. So this idea that like everyone and anyone with a pen and paper can draw, like, come on, like that's clearly absurd. You can't possibly believe that. There are just a million reasons why that's not going to happen for everyone. And because not everybody wants it, not everybody has the time, not everybody has the skill. Like, like what world do you live in which you think everyone can just do anything if they try or if they really want to? Like, sorry, that it doesn't work that way. Like, nothing works that way. And it would be really depressing to me, actually, if it did. Like, if you truly believed in this, like, 100% blank slate idea that everyone is just moldable clay, it completely rips apart what makes us unique. Does it not? Like, how does that not completely demolish the idea that people have something unique about them? It inherently does. If you think that like anyone, like I could be a great ballerina, I don't think so. I could be a great NFL quarterback? No, obviously not. Tom Brady could. Kevin Lieber cannot. And you know what? That's amazing. That is a fantastic thing. It is what drives people to do all kinds of different things and excel at different things and be rewarded for the things that they are good at. I would never be rewarded for playing basketball. No one would pay money and buy a ticket to watch Kevin Lieber play basketball. They'll pay that to watch LeBron James play basketball and Steph Curry, not Kevin Lieber. That's okay, because a lot of other people have decided to pay me with their attention, which is a form of currency, to watch my YouTube videos. So rather than going into basketball, I eventually went into YouTube and found a lot of success by putting all of my time and talent and dedication into doing that. And to me, like, that's one of the things that makes life interesting and what makes human beings interesting is that everyone does have some sort, and it doesn't have to be like something you could turn into a commodity. Some people are just better at bringing others together. Some people are better at being mediators in their family between, people who are arguing, but they all come together because this one person they all agree upon being someone they love. That's not a job, but it is one of the most important and beautiful things like a human being could do with their life. So anyway, that was one of the things I was like, no, like that is, even though of course the the tweets saying this have hundreds of thousands of likes. So that's why, to me, it's worth discussing, because obviously people do think this. A lot of people do think this. Oh, yeah, like you could definitely learn how to play the saxophone if you just wanted to. I mean, maybe poorly you could. But the another thing that I found interesting was complaining about, Miyazaki in particular, spending his life and his immeasurable talent to create just such a beautiful and like universally appealing and loved art style for his many, many, many legendary films. But now, any schmo with a computer can turn like any image into, the beautiful thing that he created, and how like that's a gross thing. And that was another thing where I'm like, okay, I understand that reaction. However, that is definitely a glass half empty reaction that I recognize as valid. The glass half full version of that is, can you imagine creating something that people love so much that they want to see themselves in that style? They want to see everything in that style, that the entire internet like goes absolutely wild, unprompted and unincentivized to see the world in a style that this guy created. Is that not at the same time like the most unbelievably flattering thing that an artist could possibly ever have happen to them? That everyone loves what you've done to such a degree, and everyone agrees that it's fantastic and beautiful, that they want to see pictures of themselves or their family or their favorite movie scenes or whatever in that style. I mean, that was one of the things that I thought of when it came to that criticism of it. I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I get the perspective that it's like cheapening something that was original and beautiful. Yes, I see that. I see that you think that it's cheapening it. And in some ways, it is. It is cheapening it by like sort of democratizing it. But like I said, on the other hand, it's also like, what is the phrase like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery? Like, is this not that to the nth degree? Is this not like the most insane example in human history of flattering someone with their imitation? I mean, I can't think of another example of that phrase being more like glaringly exemplified, because it's not being done through hatred or malice. It's being done 100% because of admiration and beauty. And the admiration and the beauty, again, I understand that at the same time they're saying, okay, but you are cheapening the beauty by, turning some Rickroll meme or something into like a Ghibli frame, a Ghibli screenshot, whatever. Okay, I get that. I'm just trying to provide like another perspective, at least another perspective that I thought about in regards to that happening, is that yes, on one hand, it is cheapening it. On another hand, it is like the craziest form of flattery that I could possibly think of happening. So we get to the question now of art and artists, because that's, you are like diminishing the value of artists by using these things. Okay. That is the big concern. Like, absolutely. Like, that is the front page headline worry about these image generators. And it is a serious concern, 100%. One of the questions I have, though, which I think is the big question that is worth considering, is just what actually is art? Like, is an AI image generator art? I think the answer to that is no. Okay. And I will explain why I think the answer to that is no. I don't think it's art. I think it looks like art, which is why it's confusing and why people are confused by it, is that it obviously looks like art on the surface, but I do not think it's art, because I think art has to come from a human being. Is that romanticizing art? I don't think so. And I'll explain why I don't think so. So, like, one of the glaringly obvious markers of the value of art comes back to the artist themselves. It comes back to the person making the art, which is why a Picasso painting is a lot more valuable than a Kevin Lieber painting. Could I make a painting that visually looked better than a Picasso? Okay, no, probably not. Certainly not. Definitely not. Could someone else who you've never heard of, let's say their name is Joe Smith, and Joe Smith is an outstanding artist. He's absolutely unbelievably talented, makes great, great, great paintings, better paintings than Picasso. But the problem is, nobody really cares who Joe Smith is. Maybe a small amount of people are big Joe Smith fans, but a huge amount of people are Picasso fans because everybody knows who that is. Because the value of those paintings is largely, almost entirely, due to the person who made them. So how much value exists in an image that was generated by some word prompts? And will we ever get to a point where someone is considered like the best AI artist and people want to pay money to purchase prints of that? I don't think so. Like I could be wrong. You never know, but I would wager to guess the answer to that is no. Like that is not a thing and will not be a thing. So I have some more like interesting things to think about. One is that our Snapchat filters art. Like if you if you put a like dog emoji over your face, is that art? Or is that just some technological sleight of hand? Is it just some goofy kind of thing that you can do with your phone? I think almost everybody would agree that that's not art and it's just a goofy curiosity of your phone. The other thing I was thinking about is, everyone with a phone can now take photographs. So obviously it used to be that in order to take photographs, it was a pretty laborious, especially in sort of the earliest decades, aside from Polaroid, which, man, Polaroid, I guess, was like the AI image generator of photographs. When it first came out, you could just press one button and have a photo. But other than Polaroid, it was kind of a laborious thing to, have a camera, and you had film and you had to get it developed. And, eventually they had like photo marts where you could, or photo mats where you could drop off the film and then you get it the next day. And eventually it was like an hour later or whatever. However, now everyone with a phone in their pocket, which is everyone, can take photos, but no one considers them a photographer. Like photography is obviously still an art. Nobody who just takes photographs on their cell phone considers them a photographer. So just because you can like do a thing that looks like another thing doesn't mean that there's a whole lot of value in it, which is why I just don't think that there's a whole lot of value, and certainly not artistic value, in the AI prompt creation. It seems to me more like ephemera. It's just like fodder. It's like a meme maker. Like people, for the most part, don't value memes, which is why they're stolen all the time. I mean, to take it a step further, a lot of people don't even value video creators or like comic creators. Those are stolen and freebooted all the time, which is also a problem. But there's a very tiny minority of people who actually give a crap about that problem. Like almost nobody cares. And one of the great unspoken things about the internet is just how much is just littered with stolen materials, and like almost nobody cares. Unless you are the person whose stuff is being stolen, obviously they care. But almost nobody like rallies around that person and says, "Yeah, I support this comic artist whose stuff was cropped, so the attribution was gone." Everyone just shrugs. They just shrug. I mean, they even shrug at these like react videos that people make where some streamer is just watching somebody else's content and quote unquote reacting to it, which is they like barely react to it. Oh, they smiled or laughed at a part. Like, big deal. You're just watching it. You're just watching them watch the thing. And does anybody really care about that? It doesn't seem like it. So, I mean, that raises an interesting point as to why so many people do care about the AI thing. And I don't have an answer to that. It seems like the one issue that's sort of in this ballpark that does rile people up. But there are a lot more questions that I have about what is actually happening here as far as like value replacement. Okay. Because the big problem with any sort of like stealing of someone else's talent or labor is, are you replacing their value with this free or cheap or democratized alternative? I think the jury is still out on like what sort of jobs will be affected by this. Will graphic designers be out of a job because of it? Will thumbnail designers on YouTube be out of a job because of it? My response to some of that is that, like, in terms of finding thumbnail artists, as a person who's been doing YouTube forever and needs those, it's actually really hard to find thumbnail artists. It's not like these thumbnail artists are all standing on street corners, busking with like a hat out, asking for money and in need of work. It's, at least in my experience, super hard to even find someone to pay to do good thumbnail work. So, like, if there aren't enough people to begin with who even want to do that job or are interested in doing it capably, then who are you replacing by using an AI tool instead? Like, in order for that to have a negative impact on an industry, there has to be an industry for it to replace to begin with. And at least in that like one very narrow specific example, there isn't much of an industry there for whatever reason, whether just not that many people are interested in doing it or like the financials don't make sense. I mean, you have to be making a pretty decent amount of money on YouTube to even be able to afford to pay somebody $100 for one thumbnail. And part of the game of YouTube is changing your thumbnails. So you need multiple thumbnails because you don't know what people are going to react to and what the click-through rate is going to be. So if you want 5 thumbnails for one video and it's $100 each, now you're paying $500 just for thumbnails. Well, like how many views are you getting for, the AdSense, or if you have a brand deal, to be able to justify that cost? The other thing is like, in economics, there's this whole idea of like Luddites, where, the Luddites were people who were, they were against, oh my gosh, going to butcher this because it's been a while since I remembered it. But I think that the Luddites were against sewing machines. Am I getting that right? I don't know if anybody is in the chat is up on the Luddites, but I believe they were against some sort of like automated process for like either sewing or making thread. And they were like smashing all these machines because they were going to get rid of those jobs. And then, the joke is that, well, because of being able to make those fibers faster, the textiles faster, all of these other jobs around that sprung up. And since then, that's kind of been the argument for any sort of like market disruptive technology that will wipe out some sector, but the promise is that it will open up many, many, many more sectors. So that like by getting rid of this one thing, we'll have like 30 things around it. I don't know if that will last forever, because in terms of like industrialization, I mean, we're not really that far respectively down the road of that, just a handful of generations. So is it possible that, using AI wipes out a whole bunch of sectors, but doesn't open up a whole lot of like more new ones? I don't know. Like, I don't really think anybody knows. If anybody did know that, then they would just put all of their money into, some stock of some company that was going to be on the cutting edge of that. And, nobody really knows. But that's a question that I think we're all asking with all of this AI stuff. On one hand, that makes sense to me that, yeah, like getting rid of all of these graphic designers or, I don't know, VFX artists or whatever it is, movie poster designers, that could wipe out stuff without replacing it. On the other hand, like in the example of like thumbnail creation, I could see like a lot more people being able to make media of value that they couldn't before because they couldn't find someone to do it capably or they couldn't afford to. I mean, most YouTubers and most people probably who listen to this podcast don't have enough money to regularly pay a whole bunch of artists to be a great video editor or to be a great thumbnail designer or to do motion graphics or whatever. It's expensive. People want, justifiably so, to get paid for the work that they do. The problem there is that if then it just never gets made at all. That's the interesting part about like AI stuff in general to me is like how much stuff never gets made because it's just financially implausible that could get made because it becomes financially viable. And then that media in turn creates a whole lot of value. I know that this is getting into like theoretical economic stuff, but these are actually like the really big questions around all of this. And it remains to be seen what will happen with any of it. But as far as like being upset that like memes are being reskinned as anime, like I don't, I'm not upset about that. I think I just think it's kind of goofy throwaway content that doesn't add a whole lot to anything other than like a brief chuckle, like a minor, shortly sustained, huh, ah, that's kind of cool, and that's it. Like that, I just don't see how it is more valuable than that. And if it's not more valuable than that, then how is it disruptive? I don't think that this iteration of where we're at with this stuff is disruptive yet. Is disruption coming down the road? Yes, probably. Does seeing like AI art diminish the beauty of real artists? I would say absolutely, positively not. It definitely doesn't in my case. There are many, many artists who I follow regularly on social media who I love. Teen Witch is one. Philip Summers is another. Philip Summers, every time he comes out with a project, back it right away. Doesn't even matter what it is. He came out with a book last year of just different illustrations of games that he had played that year with like a brief write-up of his memories of the game. I bought it right away. He's working on a hand-drawn video game guide to the original Mega Man on NES. Kickstarted that, bought it right away. Why? Because I like him. I like Philip Summers. I like that human being. And I want to support that human being. I also like that he has his own unique art style, but really I just like him. And I like Teen Witch and I like Killian Eng and I like Shamfu. You connect with people. I don't see how you connect with AI generated art at all. In the same way that you don't really connect with memes and you don't really connect with a Snapchat filter. It just seems like a technological magic trick that has no soul. And that to me is where the value of art lies, is in the soul of the person creating it. I did that whole rant about Snow White last week about how, so many movies now are lying to us. And to me, this like concept of truth and soul play directly into that. And it plays directly into the impetus for me to write my story, Sleep Warrior, to write that book, which is, all I've been working on and thinking about for months now, is that I just want to have this story put together. Like it's a story that I have in my mind that is based on a lot of what I think about how life works and how humans work and what makes people interesting and what makes people funny and all of their idiosyncrasies and faults. in strengths, all of that stuff that just I like thinking about. And it's a story that if I didn't think needed to exist, I wouldn't go through the trouble of writing it, because it is arduous and it is a lot of work, and it's a lot of work that um, there's absolutely no instant gratification in doing. I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast or I was just talking about it sort of in the after show, but it is a tremendous departure for me to go from making YouTube videos to writing a book. Because with a YouTube video, even if it took me 6 weeks to make, well, after 6 weeks, I have a finished product to then share with the world and have people enjoy or not, get some kind of feedback one way or the other. Writing a book, I'm looking at, what progress I've made so far this year and thinking, okay, I hope that by the end of this year, I have like a functional rough draft to then start fixing. I mean, that that timeline is pretty scary and in some ways demoralizing, because you just think, man, this is going to take forever. And who knows if it'll be any good at all or not? Can I write a book? I don't know. Maybe I think that I can, in the same respect that I thought that I could play basketball and I couldn't do that. But, I had to try. I had to try to play basketball to find out that I couldn't. And I have to write this thing to find out whether or not I can or not. That's one of the funniest pieces of feedback that I got years ago about book writing from actually from an agent who I was with at the time. I was like, I have this book idea and here's the idea. And she was like, cool. And I'm thinking like, oh, maybe I could get some kind of advance and sign on with a publisher to write this thing. So, I have money to live off of. That's the point of a book advance, is that you get some money up front that you can live off of while you're writing the thing. And she was just like, no, that's not happening, because it does not matter what your idea is. It matters if you can write or not. It's like telling someone that you have an idea to make a bunch of 3-pointers in a basketball game. It's like, okay, that's cute. Can you actually shoot a basketball? Because that's what actually matters. And that's what actually matters with writing a book. Can you actually write a book? What is it like? Is it any good? Can you construct, relatable or interesting characters? Can you create an intriguing and compelling forward-moving plot? Does anyone get to the end of chapter 1 and want to start chapter 2? I mean, all of this stuff is sort of important, and actually way more important than whenever your premise is. Anybody can have a premise. Oh man, I remember years ago, I was going to get my dog picked up from a groomer, and the groomer found out that I had a YouTube channel. I don't know. I guess he, for some reason, stalked me online and like found Vsauce 2 and all that stuff. And he was talking to me about it. And he was telling me his great idea for a comic strip about 2 germs, and their names were Salma and Nella. So salmonella, get it? Like, those were the characters. I guess it was like a Ren and Stimpy situation, but they're germs and their names are Salma and Nella. And that was pretty much as far as he got with the concept. But he was really excited to tell me about his idea. And he just always dreamed about making this comic strip, or Salma and Nella. And it's like, okay, well, are you going to make it? Can you draw? Can you construct a funny 4-panel comic? Who knows? Will he ever find out? That to me is like I would say like the saddest part. I guess it's not sad. Like it's good to have dreams, and sometimes it's better. And I have met people. There are people who would way, way rather live in the dream of their idea of something they could do than actually try to do the thing and find out that they failed and find out that it sucked and it's no good and nobody likes it. A lot of people are like this. I don't know, maybe most people are like this, that they're happy and content enough to like live in the hopes or the potential, or like I said, the dream of a thing that they could do if they had their shot, if they just had the time, if they just weren't so busy and they didn't have all of these stresses in their lives, or, if someone just gave them a chance and showed up to their doorstep with a sack full of money and said, I believe in you, go make your thing. They would really much rather just stay happy in the potential of a thing than go through the muck and the grime of doing it and finding out that it sucked. Because then it's gone. I mean, that's the death of your dream, right? Now you no longer can think, man, I mean, I suppose like other factors that led to its failure may spring up and allow you to justify the failure of it and to excuse it in such a way that you could live with. But that's way harder. That's way harder to go through all that than it is to just think about it and to just say, that would have been great. That would have been great. I could have been one of the next greats if only I had a chance. Oh, well. I will tell you right now that the opposite of that frightens me to no end more than just about anything that I can think of, whether that's healthy or not. But the idea or, the scenario where something happens and it turns out that like I could have done something, but that would have been awesome, that people would have loved, that I would have felt great about. And it never happened because I just didn't do it, because I didn't have the discipline or I didn't have the focus. I just got lazy and came up with excuses as to why, I don't have time for that today. And then tomorrow I don't have time for it. And then the next day I don't have time for it. And eventually I get to the end of the road and I never found time for it. So it didn't happen. Like I would actually much rather find out that the thing sucked, but I tried, than never having tried, than never having gone down the road of finding out whether it was good or bad. That to me is way worse. And maybe that's the difference between certain people who try things and others who don't. Maybe it just is the opposite for some people, where the fear of failure is crippling to a point where they would rather not go through that pain and they would be happier that way than for me. Whereas like the fear of never trying, that is really terrifying. It's just never having tried a thing that I wanted to do, that I think, or that I thought that I could do, which might be one of the reasons why I just hop around from projects, whether it's, making music or making a short film or making YouTube videos and now wanting to write a book, is not necessarily that I get like burnt out or bored with any of those things. It's just, you only have a finite amount of days in your life to try different stuff. And for some people, try different stuff means like traveling, for instance. A lot of people are like, I have my bucket list I have my world map on my wall, and I put a different push pin on all of the different locations that I go to. And before I die, I got to make sure that I go to all of these locations. There are a lot of people who are like that. And, if you're one of them, that's great. I mean, it's very, very cool and interesting and, mind expanding to visit different places and try different food and meet different people and see how they live. And that's really cool. I would say that for me, it comes down to like creative projects. That's just really what I'm interested in. And I guess that would be sort of like my creative project bucket list. It's like, just how many different mediums could I attempt to be even mediocre at? Can I be mediocre at this? Like, that's fine. It's like, can you be great at something? That's really, 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 really hard. That is an ambitious goal, to be great at something. To be okay at it? I don't know. I think that's worth exploring. At least it is for me. So, we'll see how the writing thing goes. I am definitely thankful of the people who have reached out to me so far, who have said that they want to read the book, day one when it comes out. Well, first of all, it has to come out. I actually have to get to a point where a thing is written that I think is finished enough to print on pieces of paper and bind together for someone to purchase. And we are a long ways away from that day. But nevertheless, it is very encouraging. And I do thank people who say they just want to read it. They don't even know what it's about. And that goes back to the thing about art and people. So maybe that's like a great way to tie this whole thing up, is that there are other human beings on this planet who have shown an interest in reading a book that I write for no other reason than they want to read a book from me. That's it. That's the beginning and the end of the interest. That's the beginning of the end of the value of that book to other people, is that I wrote it. Me, a human being, not an AI generated book. Who the hell wants to read that? I certainly don't. All right, everyone. Let me know what your thoughts are. Am I wildly off base with any of this stuff? I'm very, very open-minded to your feedback. So let me know what you think. I'll be back next week. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to our patrons for supporting the podcast, and those of you who hang out during the recording in our Discord. Join our Discord if you're a Discord person. Hang out in our Discord. And if you want to support the show, then you can do that on Patreon. I'll be back next week. Okay. All right. That's it. See you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week. And the recent support has been amazing. Sid Poke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezer Good, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and the Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Ferrycoon, Jen Mafasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahem, Natsu, Penny Piddler, Ryan Steer, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Bidiover. And a tremendous shout-out to our elite baby gang commanders. Atrocious Scuff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight Vinthos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, and of course, Trev's Dead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer, editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yosua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it, and thanks to Main Gear for powering all our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.